Thank you. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting of the zoning board. Oh, I thought I heard the door. The zoning board of appeals of McHenry County to order right now. Our first order of business is to elect a president pro tem or chair pro tem, and we're to run the meeting. So I'll take nominations.
I nominate Vicky.
Second that, Mr. Eldridge.
Any others?
Nomination by Charlie Eldridge,
Yeah.
second by Kurt Schnabel. Can we have voice vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
All right, I need a minute.
First order of business.
Do you care which one we do first?
It's up to you. I think 009 is first, or numbered earlier, but whatever you prefer.
Can we do them in parallel because they
They're
are
together.
identical? Do you have any objection to that, Mr. McConnell?
I do not, if you would prefer that.
Okay, Charlie just made a motion to do both of these petitions together.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Would you mind taking down the motions in a second? So I can't do all that. Okay. Okay, our first petition then, our two petitions then, this is in no particular order here. Okay, we are
So the information that we should need.
Is the other one in there too?
So there's this one.
And then the other one is in the other folder. 3 folders today, that's not fair.
You'll have to discuss this with Linnea. Okay.
I don't have any messages.
So there's both of those, okay?
Okay, and then I need the order, this is for the other one.
For this one?
Yes,
Okay, so when we get to there,
we're gonna do both of them together then.
so these are the two,
Yes, these are the two we're doing right now.
Oh, okay,
No, that's right.
got it.
okay?
All right,
Okay.
009 and 010.
all right, so we are looking at 2 petitions today. They are 2023-009 and 2023-010. These are 2 contiguous properties. And I'm going to begin by introducing our board. And so starting with Bob, can you please give your name and your township?
Yes, Robert Cozen, Algonquin Township.
Don Smolenski, Grafton Township.
Charlie Eldridge, Richmond Township.
And I'm Vicki Gartner in Nunda Township.
Kurt Schnabel, Riley Township.
Jessica Beverly, Door Township.
Okay, thank you. We are all from different townships because by state law, we can't be from this, any of us from the same township. So that gives you a much broader county view here. Okay, so our first one is,
Excuse me, Madam
yes,
Chairperson, you may want to ask the petitioner, since we only have 6 board members here, if you would like to proceed with only 6.
I thought I'd wait until voting,
Okay,
because who knows who could show up in the meantime.
you're right, correct, thank you.
Okay. So let's see, where was I? Okay, the 2 petitions. So the petitions have been reviewed, and the following items have been received prior to today's scheduled hearing. The publisher's certificate of publication from a newspaper is dated March 3rd and March 4th, 2023, and thereby meets the ordinance requirements. The affidavit of posting was signed, the date posted was March 12th, 4009, and March 12th also 4010, and thereby meets the ordinance requirements. The affidavit of mailing was signed and the date mailed was February 28th, 2023 for both, and thereby meets the ordinance requirements. The survey has been checked against the petition, legal notice, and the publication in the newspaper, and all three times two match. Filing fees have been paid. The endangered species consultation was not required for either of these petitions. The McHenry County Soil and Water Conservation District report has been received. Okay, so for those of you who are going to speak today, those two of you here, can you please raise your hands and I will swear you in? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help me God.
I do.
Thank you. Oh, I shouldn't have said so help you God. That's a throwback from my own. Okay. Okay, so the first petition is a property consisting of 7.759 acres and is located on the southwest corner of Marengo Road and Seaman Road in Coral Township. Applied for by David Thiede.
Thiede, yeah.
Thiede, okay. And the request is for reclassification from A1 to A2. Number 2 is here somewhere. It's right here. Yes. This is a property consisting of approximately 7.939 acres, and it's located on the south side of Marengo Road, approximately 600 feet west of Seaman Road in Coral Township. Again, owned by David Thiede, and the request is for A1 to A2. And our attorney today is, again,
I just keep drawing the short straw.
we're happy to see you again. Can you go ahead and explain what the petitioner would like?
Certainly. As you mentioned, these are two contiguous parcels, or rather one parcel with two single-family residences constructed on the one parcel. We're simply looking to rezone approximately half of the parcel into two separate A2s that will allow the petitioner to sell the home separately. There's really no market for two homes on one zoning parcel.
Okay.
I'd like to call as my witness David Thiede.
Sure.
So David, if you can state and spell your name for the record.
David Thiede, Thede,
And where do you reside?
9515 Seaman Road.
And you are the owner of this approximately 15-acre piece,
Yes,
15.7 acres, and it is improved with two different single-family residences.
yes.
Starting with the property to the east, which is the 15411 Marengo. How old is the home that's located on that parcel?
Approximately 130 years.
Okay, so it's been there for a while. And then the property to the west, which is the 15419 Marengo Road, how old is the home that's located on that parcel?
Approximately 70.
So back in the late 50s, something like that? Okay. And so far as you know, those homes have been properly constructed,
Yes.
or lawfully constructed. How long have you owned the property?
It's been my family for approximately 45 years.
Okay. And you wish to rezone one 7.759 acre home site to the A2 zoning district and the other 7.939 acre home site to the A2 zoning district?
Yes.
All right. Starting again with the property to the east, the 15411. This is a survey of the property back here. As indicated on the survey, this is a lawfully constructed, or there is a lawfully constructed residence on the property.
Yes.
And you said that one's more than 100 years old. The parcel for which we are seeking classification is greater than 5 acres in size.
Yes.
And our petition is limited to just this one parcel.
Yes.
Okay. This property is served by its own well and septic system.
Yes.
If the septic field needed to be replaced, is there ample area for that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So then our petition satisfies the standards for rezoning to the A2 zoning district, correct?
Yes.
The other parcel, the 15411, again, you can make out that the survey for that one is behind that, but we'll go with the drawing that's there. There is also a lawfully constructed residence on that parcel.
Yes.
It is greater than 5 acres in size.
Yes.
That parcel has 625 feet of frontage on Marengo Road.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, the property to the east also has 463 feet of frontage on Seaman Road, 629 feet of frontage on Marengo Road.
Yes.
Right, so same question, this parcel to the west also has its own separate well and septic system?
Yes.
And again, there's ample area there if you needed to relocate the septic field.
Yes.
So again, the meeting the standards for the A2 zoning district. In our zoning application, we addressed the specific standards for map amendments. Rather than go through each of those, would you like to incorporate our responses in those petitions and make those part of the record here?
Yes.
Very good. I have no other questions.
Okay. Excuse me just a moment. My allergies are really bad. Okay, so we'll start with some questions from the board now, starting with Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarity on the aerial map that is part of the staff report, shows a driveway that seems to run from Seaman Road through what is identified as a subject property to Marengo Road. How's that being addressed in that end?
That was because my parents lived in that house, and that way they didn't have to go onto Marengo Road to go over to the farm.
I can understand the motive for that, but what would happen in a conveyance? Will the house to the south apparently not have access to Marengo Road? Is that what you envision?
Well, my parents owned both the structure to the south of the property line and the farm, and that way they didn't have to go out onto Marengo Road to go over to the farm, because Marengo Road's pretty quick moving.
So if we were to sell the property to the north of where your parents' house are, we would either have to abandon that
Yes.
access to Marengo Road, or we would have to establish an easement that would allow the owner of the house, of your parents' house, to drive through the property up to Marengo Road.
Yes.
That seems pretty unlikely because of the buildings and everything?
Correct.
So most likely that would be abandoned?
Yes.
Thank you. No other question.
Thank you. Donald Smolenski?
Yes, are either of the homesteads occupied now?
Yes, the smaller house, the west parcel
By
is rented out.
by renters?
Yes.
Is your plan to keep the, as a rental property and perhaps sell in the future?
What was that?
The one that's occupied?
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
intend to keep that as a rental property now? No, you will not
I intend on selling both.
selling both of them?
Yes.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aldridge?
Yes, I have one rather snarky question for Mr. McKenna. With regard to the 130-year-old home, given that there was neither zoning nor building code at the time it was built, is it possible for it to not be lawfully constructed?
Can I follow that up with a question? Have you received any notices from the county that that home is otherwise in violation?
No, I have not.
Okay. So to our knowledge, it has been lawfully
Well, I
constructed?
don't, your knowledge, I was just asking you. As a matter of law,
It
is
is
it possible for it
possible.
not to be,
But-
to have been lawfully, that's right.
The answer is no.
There's no possibility it could be unlawfully constructed.
Okay, that's all I've got. I said it was snarky.
Yes.
Okay, so both of these properties are like contiguous, as we've seen. Are these from a larger property?
Yes.
Okay, and
Well, there was a large farm at one time there.
originally, but these two are separate now?
Yes.
Okay, so they're both two parcels that are zoned A1, is that right?
One parcel.
One parcel is, the other one is still A2.
It was all one parcel.
Okay, it was one parcel, you're splitting it up into two.
Yes.
And the larger parcel, it no longer is in existence?
A larger parcel.
The two,
A2s generally come from a 40 acre A1.
right,
40 acres or more A1.
this one 15.7 acre parcel is its own parcel zoned A1 with these two homes on it. It is not part of a larger parcel.
Okay, so it's an odd A1 with two
Correct.
residences on it?
Correct.
Okay, and it does look from the picture that we have, the aerial view, that part of the second one, I think it's 010, is still farmed?
Yes.
Okay, and that will continue?
Yes.
Okay. For the one that is not rented, the residence is not occupied?
Not right now, no.
Okay, are you planning on renting or selling or?
Selling.
Okay, that's just nosy, you don't have to answer.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schnabel?
I have no questions at this time. Just,
Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you for asking those questions, Vicki.
Okay. Are there any questions from staff?
I have no questions, but I am prepared to give my report if that's the desire of the board.
Yeah, until we, get rid of all the audience questions.
Sure, okay, audience. Okay. So as noted, this is currently a single parcel. It is unusual that it has two homes on it. It is unusual that they are requesting two separate A2 zoning designations. They do meet the standards for reclassification and for rating A2 lots. There are no outstanding environmental aspects to these properties. Particular note, staff is in support of the request to reclassify both parcels, or both requests from A1 to A2.
Okay. All right, thank you. As Anna noted, she feels the standards have been met. You responded to the standards in your application, so we'll take those in as a record. Don't need to read through them again, I don't think. Okay. So, let's see. There's stuff I can read here, right? About
So at
soil,
this
water.
point, if the board has no further questions, you do have the right to close the hearing and move it
All right.
into
Well,
voting records.
There's-
Does Mr. McKenna have any closing statement?
I do not.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, so,
And as Mr. Smolinski did note earlier, since you do have only 6 members, before going into the voting meeting, you do need to ask the petitioner how they want to proceed.
right, yeah. So, did we have anything from soil and water on either of these?
It should be in your packet there.
Yeah, just answer me.
Okay, there's nothing else. Okay, right, yes. So yes, we did receive from Soil and Water Conservation, there was nothing in particular.
Okay, so we don't need to address that. So at this point, I can close the hearing, and I will advise the petitioner that there are only 6 of us. You do need, 5 votes for a recommendation to, a positive recommendation to the county board. And you have the right to continue this hearing until we do have a full board of 7 people, and that is entirely up to you.
No, we're good.
You want to go ahead?
Thank you.
Okay, you sure now? Okay, then in that case, the hearing is closed. I will reopen as a voting meeting right now. And do we have any motions to?
I move granting both petitions.
Okay. Second, anyone?
I'll second, just to keep things consistent.
Thank you. Make your work easier here.
Correct.
Okay. In that case, we'll start with comments from the board. Okay, we'll start with Bob. Coulson?
I have no comments on the motion before us.
Okay. Mr. Slonimsky?
I have no comments.
Mr. Eldridge always has comments.
Yes, I always do. This is a slightly uncommon A1 to A2 in that it is two parcels out of each with a house on it that formed a previous single farmstead. It is not unusual in the county. There are a great many farms where, for reason of providing a home for a child or for a second home that was built later in life by farmers, that there is a second home near the first. This divides the parcel in two, each with a home on it. It has been long the public policy of the county to try to preserve the farmsteads wherever possible. And this is, other than that one little oddity, entirely consistent with that. One of the parcels has a pretty full set of buildings on it. The other is pretty much just a house and some vacant land. But it meets the standards for A1 to A2. I believe that all of the standards for map amendment have been met. I believe that the standard for the Plat Act has been met, and I support the petition.
Mr. Schnabel?
I also support the petition.
Mrs. Beverly?
No comments.
Okay. So, I don't have much to say either. Mr. Eldridge covered just about everything, and this is unusual. It's a little different, but in the big picture, nothing is going to change. Everything will look the same, and business will carry on as usual there. So I'm in favor. So we'll take a voice vote here, starting with, let's see, I'm supposed to write this down. I'm sure I can't do this because they're both, thank you. Okay. And this is on both petitions, both 009 and 010. There it is. Okay. And Mr. Cozen?
Aye on both petitions.
Okay. I should have started with Charlie. Mr. Eldridge?
Yes, on both petitions.
Okay. I'll vote yes on both petitions.
You skipped Don.
I know, I'm going in order here now. Mr. Schnabel?
Yes on both.
Okay. Mr. Smolinski?
Yes on both.
And Mrs. Beverly?
Yes.
Okay. That goes to the county board with a 6-0 vote in approving. And that meeting will be,
That will be in the May agenda.
yeah,
A little easier today than the last couple.
yeah.
I'm still a little twitchy.
I said we'd be kind.
Yeah, thank you. I just have to give you what you like. That's, just have to learn.
Okay, so we're looking at the 18th of May.
Look at it this way, Mr. McKenna. Today's opening day, and we want
agenda, or third agenda item today is, again, we're gonna look at these ordinances that we looked at last time. And Renee, go right ahead.
Thank you. You know what? I apologize. I wasn't sworn. Do you
Oh.
mind?
Were you were here?
I was here, but I.
Yes, and then it's
Yeah,
hearing, so
I
you
do
do a
not
separate
mind.
hearing, separate.
And I'll take the God out this time.
Got it.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So help me.
It doesn't go over everywhere, you know?
So, I apologize that I didn't get this to you guys sooner. Kind of worked on it up until the last minute. But you saw it a few weeks ago. This is the red line of the text amendment that the PED committee is proposing in order to make our regulations on siting solar and wind energy projects consistent with the new state statute.
Yeah.
So some things that changed. On page 1, we added in definitions of non-participating properties, participating residents, and non-participating residents, participating properties, and supporting facilities. So that was a suggestion that Jess had to add those in, which I think clarifies, and I just took these definitions straight from the state statute. So those were added, and then she just brought to my attention too, which is a really good call, on page 2.
Well, I have another question before
Oh,
we get
okay.
into that. So it's on page 2 and page 3. Page 2, I'm looking at 2C, where it says the zoning board of appeals will recommend approval or denial of the application. I think that we can change it, because under the state law, the only thing that we're really allowed to do is like this screening. That's really the only condition that we can put on a solar farm. So we could just say at the end, to protect the public interest consistent with the statute citation or consistent with state law, and leave it in there.
Okay.
And then there's another one on page 3, number 3B, where it says the county board can impose conditions and restrictions. The only thing they're really allowed to affect is the screening as well. So you could just add that same language in there, consistent with state law or 55 ILCS, yada yada.
Okay. So I would, yes, change that consistent with cite the law and say as amended from time to time too, so it covers when they change that.
Yeah, if they change it somewhere else in the ILCS, then you won't have to come back.
Are you saying on 2C and then
Yes, 2C and then 3B on page 3, where it talks about how the county board can impose conditions. Under the statute, we really can't impose conditions or stipulations or changes to the application process that's inconsistent with the AMA, the Agricultural Mitigation Agreement. So
Right.
really, the only thing we have control over is what sort of screening they put in.
Yes. Okay. So you've made that motion, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? for
I
that?
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All ayes.
Okay, I will make that change.
Got one down.
All right, so I don't think anything new is there. So the next new change,
I mentioned, I'm sorry, I have a point.
Yes.
Thank you. Under
Under this definition of supporting facilities, there is a, on the first page, there's a reference to storage of electricity. Just for clarification, so if a battery plant were to be proposed to an existing storage, existing energy facility, would that require an amendment to the conditional use? Or because your storage of electricity is not referenced in the core definition of either solar energy facility or wind energy system.
That's true.
Don't we have an ordinance about accessory? Well, we should get one.
We don't, we've talked about that because we've actually had people contact us that want to do what they're calling battery farms, commercial battery farms.
Mhm.
So we do need to address that. At
Right.
some point, we're gonna work on that. But if someone were gonna add batteries to their existing facility that currently has a conditional use, could we require them to come back through the process?
And my concern, just to bring it focus, is you've already identified it as a supporting facility. So it seems like it's already being preemptively approved.
It is, from
As a
here
s-
forward, because
right.
of the state law,
So
yes.
can we remove that storage of electricity from the supporting facility?
Can we change the state law
No, I
definition?
didn't,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you can make the storage of electricity as a standalone definition.
Well, eventually we will do that, but as the state law stands now, if someone comes in and they have battery storage, that's a supporting facility that has to be approved.
But do we have any in McHenry County that are battery?
Well,
So-
we have two, but they're in municipalities and they're owned by energy companies.
So we just bring it back, is it, so if, as this would not allow one to come through a back door then?
It wouldn't allow one if the principal use, if it's a battery farm, no. They couldn't rely on this definition of supporting facilities because that battery farm wouldn't be supporting an on-site.
Right, but we're talking about a supporting facility with the solar. So if the existing solar facility were to come forward and add on a battery facility to it, could they use this as an exemption to the review process? And that's the gist of my question. Sorry.
No, I
Yeah,
understand.
and probably, that's a good question, because we have all these existing conditional uses out there that supposedly shouldn't be affected by this law. But then that is a good question. So if they were, by our standards, if they were adding a battery component, in my opinion, that would be a major change to their existing CUP, and I would require them to come through the process. But the state's attorney may tell me I couldn't do that. But that's how I would see it until I was told otherwise.
I would like to see it that way.
Same here.
But if one came through today, if one of these that's gotten in under the wire here, and came through today and has that battery component, I don't think we could deny them. But
So you can check with the state's attorney then?
I
to see-
can,
okay,
yeah,
and then
to
get
see
back
how
to
that
us on
applies.
I would,
But that's my assumption, and that's what we've been told, is everything that comes through from January 27th, wasn't it? On state law, anything before, still, we treat the same as.
yeah, I would like to just note for the board's information that there are other ways of storing electricity other than batteries. The city of Harvard is currently discussing somebody who has a flywheel technology that stores electricity.
Flywheel? That sounds so turn of the century.
It does, doesn't it? I think of like a water wheel.
Yeah.
It actually is quite efficient.
Really?
Yeah. Company's been around for 40 years.
So they're storing their electricity that way?
Yes.
Okay, so how would that differ then from a battery as far as our ordinance is concerned?
So I don't think, I mean, this says storage, so storage is storage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I don't think
But,
that we'll
and
have.
there
the
are a
budget.
couple of other technologies out there
Okay.
too.
But it's unlikely that we would have a flywheel farm come for,
Well, Harvard actually is expecting one,
are they? Oh, okay. All
so I
right.
don't know about unincorporated.
But we don't have to get that mucked up with this, because that's entirely different.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
No, I was just tossing out there that there were other choices.
Okay, all right.
so what I will say, in thinking about the question, Mr. Cousin, which is a great question, if someone who has an existing facility, they could apply to do away with their conditional use and then reapply. They
And
could
everything
do
they
that.
want for nothing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and people might start doing that, we don't know. We kinda- that
Especially the
came
more
up at
strict
PED.
ones.
Yeah, that came
Especially
up
the
at
what?
PED, and
The
that
strict
might
ones.
happen. We might start seeing that, so.
I have another motion when we're ready.
I'm ready for you.
Okay. On page 4B3, it's the same issue related to the other one that I mentioned. The county board may impose additional conditions on an approved site plan consistent with the statute.
4B3. Yes. Okay. Okay, Renee, do you want to pick up where you left off?
Did you want to vote on that?
Yeah,
Oh, yes, sorry.
well, we need a second and I'll
Yes,
second.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay.
Okay, so on page 5, what changed here, we kind of reworded this to try to make it clearer that our expectation is that the members of the staff plat review will get their individual reviews into us 14 calendar days prior to the public hearing. So you guys have enough time to consider their comments.
Okay,
And we changed it to calendar days at Mr.
Okay.
Cozen's direction.
thank you.
And then on page 7, this is Kim's suggestion, and we've decided to try this. We had the discussion about the application, and that's something that we have discussed with our state's attorney, because when these things started coming into us, the day that the state law went into effect, we asked our state's attorney, can we hold them up for having incomplete applications, or what do we do about the application? And they told us no. As long as they submit the application form and pay the fees, basically, that's when the clock starts ticking on the 45 days. So we added a C that we believe kind of covers this as a little bit of a catch-all if things change with that, to say all other application submittal requirements outlined in planning and development zoning application packet. So if it comes down the road that we can ask for a drain tile survey, then we could put it on the, we're hoping that that would work, that we just could put it on the packet and we wouldn't have to come back through and amend the ordinance.
If you have to, you have to. Yes.
Sorry.
I saw that citation. Can we give a clearer identification to it, either as adopted on a certain date or some kind of recordation number? This way, if a push comes to shove, it's what are we speaking to the specific document? How you identify your documents in planning and zoning?
We change it, we do change it all.
Right.
Well, to be strategic, you would want to leave it vague so that they can
Yeah.
change it whenever they want.
Right, but then you're playing hide the hockey puck.
A
Which
little bit.
rule you're playing for?
Are you still talking about C?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The C, we don't know,
Right.
was this one adopted last week? Was it the one we saw coming through the door?
I think that this is good the way it is, because it just says all other application submittal requirements as they are added to our requirements.
And then we don't have to come back. If they make a small change, like allowing a drain tile survey,
Right.
then we would have to come back and say, like, re-amend it. If we just leave it vague, they can change it as they know.
Do you have a concern about the vagueness of it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, go right ahead.
That's the, well, just to give a little more specificity, where one would find it in the, as it's on file with the county planning and development, as adopted by, just some way so we're.
Does published on the county website help?
Oh, whichever way somebody could
That
come in
would-
and
that
find
would
it.
work, I would
In
think.
today's day and age, it's like locating a menu at a restaurant.
So your motion is to add,
As may be published
on the county website. And I use the word may intentionally, so in case the website's down or you do an update to your website and it's omitted, et cetera.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for the discussion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Okay, so the same page 7, under 2E, I had redlined the all site development shall comply with stormwater management ordinance. So at the request of the representative from the defenders, I unstruck that. I don't know where the word is, but I left it in as it remains. And as we talked about, we're really not sure what the state law, it's very specific about limiting drainage districts. We're not sure if there's gonna be limitations on our stormwater ordinance or not, and that was a question that the state's attorney couldn't even answer for us. So we'll leave it in if, I mean, the stormwater management ordinance doesn't get its authority from the UDO anyway, so in my mind, it doesn't really matter, but
It does seem
It does-
like apples and oranges, really.
it doesn't hurt to be in, I suppose.
Can I ask a question about this section? It requires any damaged drainage tiles to be repaired.
Mhm.
If we're not requiring a survey,
How do we know?
how are we gonna know that they're damaged? Unless they damage them when they dig them up.
Yeah, on site.
Okay,
And the AMA provides for that as well.
okay. I have another question on this page.
Mm-hmm.
On number H, or letter H, excuse me. Landscapes with an arrangement of native shrubs subject to approval by the county.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing subject to the approval by the ZBA or by county staff?
County board.
County board, okay.
Yeah, so we had talked about that, beefing up the landscape requirements, just the two of us offline. And after I read this, I was like, that's sufficiently vague, so I guess we can just leave it, because we talked about the idea of, you know, they could do fencing, but they could also do a living fence, a solid hedgerow, or whatever is determined. And since landscape screening is the one thing that the state's leaving us control of, I think we're good to just keep that broad.
So my question is, the county wouldn't have their vegetative management plan because it would have to be approved by the county board, and that is supposed to come at the building permit application stage?
That's when it comes now, correct? Usually? The management plan and the
Yeah, it's during
agreement
permitting.
is during permitting.
And the site plan, so I'm wondering, like, I don't know, I'm just wondering how we can impose screening requirements if they can come before us and have like a really short willy-nilly hearing where they don't have their site plan completely mapped out, they don't have their drain tile studies done, and they don't have a screening plan. Like, what sort of leverage the ZBA or the PED or the county board itself have to do anything?
Where is that, application standards? So the site plan, we left in that they do have to have, there's things on the site plan that they do have to have, and I would argue that landscape screening would be one of them.
Okay, so that's
Because
on
we
the same
require it
page
now.
7,
Here it is.
1B.
So a site plan shall be provided showing all improvements, including structures, fencing, power lines above and below ground, lighting and landscaping, at a sufficient detail to understand the location, blah, blah, blah.
Okay,
So in my mind, at least even if it's not an application, they have to have that by public hearing.
Okay, so we're just kind of changing when they can come out with this, right?
No, that's what we require now.
Okay.
This board has gone beyond what the ordinance says a complete application is because the solar companies have been willing to do that. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, we've asked for things that aren't even in the ordinance, like the drain tile survey and
Most of them are
Different
providing
things.
them.
Yeah.
Most of them
Most
have
of
been
them-
desperate so far too.
Most
so-
of them were in the past, but we have had, Kim has had pushback. We had originally thought that the AMA had to be part of the application to us, but someone was very quick to point out to Kim that the state statute says they don't have to get us the AMA until before the public hearing. It doesn't, we couldn't make it part of the application.
Okay, but it will be available by the hearing.
The public hearing,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, that's kind of the same thing.
Or they have to delay their own right to a hearing
Right,
and push it back.
yeah.
Okay, well then I would just make a motion to add in county board to that section, just so that we're very clear about who it is that's approving it.
Okay, and is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, both of you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? No. Okay. That
Okay.
passes.
And then, why do I have that marked as being changed?
You changed section I to be building permit issuance per the conversations that we had at the last hearing.
That's what we were just
I
talking
is
about.
only changed to get rid of construction permit and change it to building
Yeah.
permit for
Yeah.
consistency of language.
It's very
That's-
clear.
yeah,
I like it.
That's it, yeah. And then we also changed, this is J, this is what we recently learned. So we had prior to construction,
Yeah.
we were trying to make it prior to application, they pushed us and said, no, it clearly says prior to scheduled public hearing. So we made that clear in J.
Okay.
And then, visions. I think that changed. I think that's it.
Looks like you just corrected the wording then on page 9 for 5A and C, right?
Yeah.
To reflect building permit issuance rather than construction.
Yeah,
Okay.
and change that was, you saw that in the last draft, those
Okay.
changes to the bonding, because
Okay.
that's specific in state law as well. So I believe that's all that we changed in this round.
Well, thank you.
I move approval of the changes subject to the,
I actually have another, well, I don't know. I have another thing that I'd like to talk about regarding this before we adjourn the hearing. So I guess we could do this motion and then I want to talk about something else.
Do you want to talk about that before we have a motion?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about some work that the county board recently did under section 1620-040H. And that is the one that says that solar conditional use permits will be extended without review indefinitely if the delay was caused by a government agency. And so what that means is that they're gonna go through this process and they're gonna apply for the solar farm, and it might not be built within a couple of years because they're waiting on adjustable block grant program funding through the state. And in that case, their permit would be renewed indefinitely until they got it. But it's my understanding that everybody is upset about this law. There's a lot of pushback. It is really inconsistent inside of itself. And with how zoning boards work, it was, I think there will be changes to this law, whether it's probably not this session, but veto or next session. And I think we're setting ourselves up for every application that comes through right now to be never reviewed again. And I would ask if we could consider a recommendation to the PED committee or to the county board, asking them to take another look at that statute and to bring these conditional use permits back in 2 years for a re-review. If it's not built within 2 years, you have to come back.
I could see doing that if it's not built within 2 years or 3 years or 4 years prior to building.
What is the normal conditional use permit? Like, what was it before this was changed?
1 year, wasn't it?
I thought it was 2. If
Was
you
it
needed a
2?
permit,
Yeah.
if you need a permit, like any conditional use permit. If I'm gonna do a landscape facility, I get my conditional use today, I've gotta get permits and build it, then I have 2 years to do that. If I don't do it within 2 years, then the conditional use permit expires.
2 years to complete
And
it
you
or
would
2
have to
years to
come back.
start it?
To start it,
Okay.
yeah. So the county board with the 36-ish conditional uses, is that right? Am I right? That we have out there for the solar farms, the county board passed a moratorium a couple of times in direction for us to set aside enforcement of that provision on solar farms, because they didn't want to see the 32 solar farms every 2 years until they get built, because they knew it would be a while before they were completed. So we changed that in a round of text amendments last year to kind of make that permanent. And like Jess said, it says that the zoning officer can give them a renewal as long as the delay is caused by a government entity and not their own fault or whatever. But even Duke is kind of making that argument with us because they're say that they can't get permission to connect to the grid. And the grid is controlled by the, federal.
Well, that is a really tenuous argument, because it's a ComEd interconnection agreement, isn't it?
No,
Oh.
because it's
Oh, I thought it
PNG,
was.
and that's directly regulated by the Federal Energy Commission.
Okay.
So anyway, but the intent with the county board was they didn't want to see them come back every 2 years. The only other thing I'm not sure of is what kind of vested rights these people have. Like, if there were new standards and they were coming back through for renewal, for just a renewal of their conditional use, I don't know if we can impose additional standards on them, or if they're vested in what they've got now.
That was my
I
question.
don't know.
That was my question.
And then they can always just reapply. If the law remains to their benefit, they can always just reapply
Well,
under
the
those.
state law remains the same, but if we have more leeway, if we can add more conditions,
Mhm.
that might change for them, and that's what I was gonna ask.
That's what I'm not really sure. That's something we would have to talk to the state's attorney about, because I don't know.
I bet they don't know.
I don't think it would be a vested interest, because it only goes one way, right? Like, oh, well, this law is better for me, so I'm gonna apply on this. Well, if the law changes, you can't say it was better for me before, like, you're under review again. You must go through this process again.
Yeah, I think it's,
I don't know. I've been through a number of lawsuits that would suggest otherwise, because the whole idea of vested rights is crazy in my mind, but.
Todd?
Yeah.
I'm more troubled by the property owners who received the initial notice of what's occurring adjoining to them. And do they have a notice? Because after time goes on, we're saying years out, the property's changed hands, duty to inform. Now they're in there and signs go up to say we're a solar farm that was approved in the last decade.
I don't think that's our problem.
Well, we're just said we're going.
Yeah, that actually just happened. There's North Hill and North Solon and Hill Road. There was approved in 2018, and we just started getting calls from neighbors going, "What's going on?" They're out there doing the pull testing, but it's still valid, and now they're getting ready to get their permits. But it's changed hands from Borrego to another company. But it's been 5 years since they got their conditional use, but now they're finally going to construct.
So I mean, if there's new homeowners, it's not incumbent on us to let them know what might happen in their, past their backyard or whatever. It's honestly up to the seller or the real estate or whatever.
But that's one reason why we have an act-on date, is that, and I'm thinking in a more narrower perspective of if someone comes in to get a building permit, receives a building permit, the adjoining property owners have a sense of what's going to go on in their backyard. But
Yeah.
if that permit is for years on. And it required a variance for the side yard setback. And the builder did not act on that for, how long does a builder have it?
Well, if in the case of a variation, in perpetuity, those don't expire at all.
But the permit, he
The
has to
permit would expire
expire, and so
after,
then
yeah.
he'd have to
20
come in
years.
back again and the whole,
Mhm.
I'm just
Yeah,
in
but he
trouble.
wouldn't have to ask for the variance again. He
Yeah.
had the variance,
So it runs,
yeah.
So
Right.
it wouldn't come by us at all.
In that
Yeah.
same vein, getting back to the solar review, is it more expensive for staff to re-review these is it like overly burdensome for staff to re-review these conditional permits? If we put a date on it and said like, from January 27th, 2023 forward, all conditional use permits must be reviewed every 2 years. Is that overly burdensome on staff?
Yeah, looks like it, yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
we
I-
have trouble keeping up with inspecting the conditional uses that are out there that we are supposed to be enforcing conditions on.
Well, for the solar farms only, is what I
Keeping up
mean.
with that, yeah.
If we were to say for solar farms, their conditional use permit must be reviewed every 2 years if not constructed from January 2023.
Well, especially for a solar farm, that's not a long time, because those are hard to get off the ground, basically.
Yeah, and then I guess the question is, what would the purpose be other than the idea that the state law might have changed? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it.
Well, I
In the
mean,
end.
if you look at it like, you know, the existing CUPs that we have now are working under a certain set of rules that we had at that time. If they come in and they have to renew it or they want to do something different, then it's different rules again. But from now until that point, same
I
rules.
also think that could be a detriment to the neighbors, because now they're allowed to be 150 feet from the neighbors.
I know.
yeah.
I would expect that we would
Yeah.
see
Lighting.
reapplications rather than, like, why would you
Yeah, if
go
we
through the work?
expired them, why would anybody want to renew? They would just reapply
Yeah,
under the less stringent standards.
yeah.
I'm just wondering if the law's gonna change, right? I anticipate that this is gonna change. There has been uproar from every county board, zoning board, doesn't matter what party, there's uproar on this, the language of this. So I expect the language will change. If we're approving, 10 solar farms between now and the change, then we've got 10 solar farms going forward with standards that don't meet our criteria. You know what I mean? Like, this feels very against our will. We had a really good ordinance, it was really strong, we could
I know.
direct how we wanted these things to look. And if they change it and give some of our power back, that's off the table for anything that's approved between now and a change.
That's right, between now and when it changes. From that point forward, when it changes, we can put something else on there.
Right,
And that's how it's always been.
okay.
Am I right?
I mean, we can come back, and if something changes, we can come back and do another text
We'll do
amendment.
another of these and,
We'll just have to do it quickly.
right, yeah. Bob?
Right, thank you. On a minimum, does the conditional use holders contact if there's a change in ownership or contact? So if the company has gone out of business,
We don't condition the conditional uses on ownership, so they do change.
Right, but then how would you know to contact them? Do they have an active petition?
With the solar farms, they're supposed to notify us when
Oh,
they
so that's-
change,
there's
but
a
they
requirement.
change like every 6 months.
Oh, I'm
These
sure.
things sell
This-
like
this-
every 6 months. So, yeah, there is a requirement, and there is a requirement in the AMA that if there's a change in ownership, they're supposed to notify the property owners as well. And there's supposed to be a sign on the fence with the current ownership and how to contact them as well.
Right, but right now, if Duke were to go forward with its sale,
Mhm.
does Duke have an obligation to tell you who they sold it to?
No.
Not- And I recognize that example might work because it's a publicly traded company,
Mhm.
but if that one gentleman who was before us was a private facility, if
Oh, no, they would, because they have a name on it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yes, they would be required.
It's kind of like a
And-
mortgage, you know?
Yeah.
You get a mortgage with one company, and then you get a letter saying, we sold you
So
to.
that's just it.
Because their surety has to be, the name on their surety has to be changed
Thank you.
at that point, so, yeah. But their site plan, everything Duke said they would do, but these people are constrained to as well, I mean.
Yeah, they have to, because that was the rules when they
Mhm.
came through.
Yeah.
And until they change something, they have to stick to it. Right?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a way for us to like claw back anything that we give away for the next 12
No,
months.
there is not.
Okay.
No, you're fighting the state.
Yes.
They always win.
Yes.
And
So is there anything else?
No, I'll stop talking. Thanks, guys.
Well, you can talk as much as you want.
Just a motion to approve the amendment?
You started to.
I started to make such a motion, and I will finish it.
Okay.
I move that we accept the proposed changes as amended today.
I'll second it.
Thank you, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion passes.
Thank you. You didn't ask me if I wanted you to vote today.
Oh.
You served my rights. Just for the record.
Sorry. Next
Yeah,
time
you
we'll
only got
just be quiet.
six, you only got 6 votes.
That's right. Yeah. I'm sure you would have gotten 7.
I texted and asked if everything was okay, and I haven't.
I will call her and say, where were you?
Yes.
That's
And if she's sick or something.
I know,
just let
I'm
me
a little
know.
worried because,
It's not
you know,
like
she
her
did
at all.
a